Thank you guys for coming. So what you've been looking for when it comes to this webinar is how to break into tech as an older career changer. And for some of you guys, this might be a new journey. Maybe this is something that you've thought about before. Maybe it hasn't. Maybe you haven't. But this is a topic that I get a lot when it comes to people who are trying to break into tech, which is, can I do it at my age? Because tech has this impression that everyone who is a techie is somehow like an embryo, which I completely understand that impression, but I'm gonna swear to you guys that there are more people in tech than some 22-year-old guy from, who went to Stanford University. I promise. And that's actually what we're gonna get into for this whole presentation, is how you can break into tech and feel that confidence as well. So thank you guys for coming. And as Yakub told you, you can use the chat, you can upvote questions, you can add questions. And of course, if you do want to inquire more about CareerFoundry, there is a link that you'll be forwarded to as well. But now that we got the housekeeping, let's talk about what you're going to learn. We're going to talk about where the tech job market is. We're going to talk about how to create a skills inventory. I say that because I've noticed that older career changers skip that step when it's one of the most important things of all, because it's how you assess your seniority level. The next thing we're going to talk about is how to activate your social network, where to focus on social media, and how to choose the best employers. So let's see, it looks like we got more and more folks joining. So just reiterate, if you guys have questions, drop them in the chat and I'll get to them after we're done. So let's get into, I guess, the about me. I'm Sammy Gardner. I help creative tech professionals design their dream careers. I've been working with CareerFoundry for about 5 years now as a senior career specialist. And when I'm not working with CareerFoundry, I also host the Career Kickstart show, which is a podcast. So that's the big information about me. I also love to travel, and I do love fantasy novels, so that's a little bit of the personal details. But let's move into you guys. Let's talk about you. So I see exactly where everybody is located, but what is your background? Drop into the chat what your previous career is, what you're trying to break out of, if you will. That's always good to know, because your background can be your secret sauce, if you will. Your background can give you insight and a network that could actually help you in tech. So in the comments, drop what your background is. What do you work as right now? Ooh, we got Sabrina as a product designer. We got LaDanya is a apparel designer. We got Michelle in academia. Ooh, we got Janice with pharmacy sales, customer service, IT. Awesome. Sweet. Okay, so we got a lot of different fields. Thank you, guys. Yeah. Wow. You guys are just professional basketball player. That's cool. I don't know if we've had a professional basketball player. We've had a number of ballerinas before. Awesome. Thanks, guys. Got some moms who are returning to the workforce. Cool. Awesome. Thank you so much, guys. Good stuff. Now, the thing is like I said before, everything that you've done in your career, all those skills, all that training or that education, that is helpful for you. However, when job seekers, especially when they're career changers, when they come into a new field, they got a bunch of fears. One of them is starting from scratch. People, a lot of people with experience, they worry about having to pay your dues. The thing is, a lot of your experience and skill set can be surprisingly relevant, even if the jobs themselves don't seem alike. You guys haven't hatched from an egg. All of that stuff still applies. The next fear that people have is no one's going to want to hire a career changer. Now, the thing is hiring managers are pretty pragmatic in a lot of ways. They mostly want someone who can do the work, do it well. So the most important thing that you can focus on is how you highlight your skills to match your new roles, and how you can prove that your not so linear career trajectory puts you at a advantage over maybe somebody else with a straightforward path. And also, what I've noticed with tech is that your portfolio that can do so much for you. I've seen people who have no experience who are able to impress people with their portfolio. So there's a lot of different roads to get into the type of job that you want. Now, this is something that, might have been rolling around in your brain, but you haven't really expressed. And that is, what if I'm terrible at this? What if I'm just bad at technology? Now, the truth is, you're going to feel out of your element whenever you try something new. That is, kind of goes into the starting from fear, starting from scratch fear. You are at the bottom of the totem pole now. You have to learn new things. You have to stretch your skill set in different ways. You have to study. You might be doing homework and you haven't done that in years. So yes, you're probably going to be bad at it in the beginning. You're probably going to feel out of your element. You're going to need to practice, but when you have a motivation, a passion for the field, and you equip yourself with with the support that you need, whether that's understanding your learning style, being proactive with your education, maybe that is reaching out to a mentor, getting tools. CareerFoundry kind of helps you with a lot of that. But in general, you might be bad at the beginning and then you're going to get better. But you have to give yourself permission to get through that beginning stages of you trying to learn this new discipline. That stage does not last forever. So if you have the passion and the will, you will attain the skill. Now, let's talk about the real thing that we came here for, which is, what about ageism? So, at companies such as Facebook or SpaceX, the median employee age is under 30. And in fact, 61% of developers over 45 are concerned about age. Now, there's a couple of reasons for that. It is not because the tech industry wants everybody to be, the children, it's because in the beginning, a lot of people in tech were really young. And now there is this thought that maybe older developers or those with more experience might want higher pay. They aren't as likely to sell their hard-won skills to a startup where everybody's working 90-hour weeks. And this can drive a preference for younger, cheaper developers, the hungry grads. However, that is becoming less and less of a factor for many areas of the industry. And in fact, I would say for the majority of you guys who are outside tech industry or tech hubs, that's not really going to be the case. If you are in a place like Phoenix or Boise, or, I'm thinking about American cities, but could be all over. Those are going to be places, at least in my experience, I've seen that my older job seekers aren't running into the same issues that maybe somebody who is competing in San Francisco has. The thing is that when employers are looking at your skill set, especially now, because frankly, more and more tech founders are getting older. I was actually at a conference in Portugal. It's called the Landing Conference, and there was a group of tech founders who were doing a talk, and it was about a lot of them getting older and realizing different things in their hiring practices. Was that they were looking for more maturity. They had gotten out of that being like, a 25-year-old flush with cash, and they are now business owners who have to sustain their businesses. So there is an awareness more and more that having somebody who is an older developer or a designer, that is something people are not as worried about. So for you guys who are really worried about ageism, there's a number of things that you can do to definitely kind of assuage anybody's fears about that. Now, the thing is, if you're going to be a designer or a developer, data analyst, anybody in tech, you're going to need to be constantly learning. Skills can become out of date. The pace in tech is quite quick, and you're always going to be updating your skill set, which for me is one of the things that I find exciting about tech. Now, with that in mind, here are two mistakes that you can kind of avoid when you are an older career changer. One is not aligning your career story to the jobs of the future or to the tech market. When you are, presenting yourself, and if you decide to go with CareerFoundry and you are assigned a career specialist, they will actually work with you on developing your personal brand and stuff like that. But you want to make sure that you are aligning yourself to your new future career. You can't always be looking back and expect to have people see you in a future role. And then the next mistake is subtly revealing, or not so subtly, that you haven't kept up with the technology, essentially being scared of it. You're never going to break the computer, like, unless you throw it out the window. So you want to make sure that when you are going about your career change, that you want to have faith in your future. You want to look forward, and you want to not, like, even in self-deprecation or like jokes or something like that, put yourself down about your skill level. I've actually I teach a university class, so I teach all these 19-year-olds, and they talk a lot about digital natives and stuff like that. Some of them are not good at things like Excel and office equipment and things like that. So they aren't the tech savvy whippersnappers that are going to, revolutionize things as much as people worry. In fact, I read this study that people who are in Gen X are some of the, the ideal, techies, because they've been able to navigate, the technological evolution. So those are a little bit about, the job seeker fears. And I want to get into the strengths that you guys have. Okay, because you're coming to the table, and maybe it's because I've been teaching, college kids for a couple semesters now, so I have a greater appreciation for maturity and wisdom. But you guys have a lot of strengths. One, you're going to have more experience, and that is in life, that is in business, that is in everything. You're going to be able to, in a lot of ways, have a greater depth of knowledge that you can rely on than anybody younger. So that's something to think about. The next thing is that you're going to have industry insights in a network that's going to be bigger than your average 25-year-old or something who came from Stanford. For those of you guys, and I'm looking at all the different places where you guys have worked. We have people who have been in the entertainment industry, aviation. We have people who are a legal secretary. Here's the thing, especially for you guys who are talking about like the law, medicine, things like that. You have an insight into industries that frankly can put you ahead of the curve of maybe even like a more experienced designer or developer. Here's the next story about that. I actually had a student who was a former like clinical healthcare researcher for neonatals, so the little babies. She actually got her first job out of CareerFoundry was with Google in their research team, because she was able, I forget what they were working on, it was like a healthcare sort of thing, but she was able to stand out above a maybe more of an experienced designer because she spoke the language of medicine and research, and in a way that it would have taken a maybe more experienced designer a lot longer to get up to the speed on medicine than it would to take a promising junior and get them up to speed on whatever that project was. So you might have an insight into an industry that can definitely be either, a value add for a company. It could be the beginning of a personal brand, so don't discount what you've done before. All of your insight, your network, everything that you've done, coming to this place where you are now can be helpful. Another thing that is good about older job seekers is that they have more staying power in a role. You know, younger younger people generally hop more, so that's something that you'll always have over a younger job seeker, is the perception that you're more likely to stay. And this is the last thing that for some of you guys who are like developers might be surprised that I'm going to talk about this being a value add, but generally older job seekers have better writing and communication skills. You didn't grow up on TikTok or Twitter, and it shows. So you're going to be able to, just with your cover letters, the way that you write your case studies, you're going to be able to stand out just through sheer articulation, So, and here's the thing. I just saw that Stefan in the chat says he has 25 years in operational logistics and transportation analysis and delivery. Amazon actually during the pandemic was hiring UX designers like crazy just for them to do logistics and delivery. So some of you guys can actually almost directly take skills like that and maybe get into a hybrid role, so there's a lot of things that you can do with your skill set that you have now. The biggest thing that you always have to remember is that performance provides value. Keep that in mind when you're dealing with employers, creating projects, and that is going to be a good guiding star. So let's see, we got everybody given their ages. Okay, we got 30, we got 42, we got 51. I think our oldest student we ever had was a 72-year-old Frenchman, and he is adorable, and he's actually working, so he's still doing his stuff. Yeah, so none of you guys are as old as our oldest graduates. So kudos. Let's talk a little bit while everybody's given their ages. Let's talk a little bit about where the job market is right now. So the economy in many places. Well, actually, let me start with a disclaimer. The job market is not homogeneous. It is not the same everywhere. You do not see the same percentage of industries, jobs, talent pools it's not the same in every city. Your city will have its own unique industries. It will have its own unique design or development scenes. So you're always going to want to do your own research. You can do that at websites like Glassdoor or PayScale. That can give you some information on, just salaries, companies. I also like using LinkedIn to find local companies. So keep that in mind. What I'm going to say next are generalities, and you're going to have to do your own due diligence to see where you can find your own advantage in your own local job market. So in general, the economy is rebounding in a lot of ways. Businesses are expanding. It's not evenly distributed, but you see it in different places. Like I saw that American Airlines was hiring UX designers a couple of weeks ago. So if the airline industry is back on, hey baby, we're getting there. So let's talk about some, I guess, winning industries, because whenever you have a recession or any sort of economic disturbance, there's going to be some winners and there's going to be some losers. So the winning industries are generally right now telecommunications, ed tech, healthcare, home improvement, e-commerce, delivery. Honestly, if you can think of an industry that benefited from everybody being at home, whether that is pajama makers, toilet paper makers, Netflix people, there were some folks who did well. The industries that were more stalled were restaurants, hospitality, travel, brick and mortar retail, and etc. Now, everything is kind of coming back to life, but keep that in mind. You guys can look at your background, and we're going to talk about skills inventory so you can be strategic about where you apply. Now, I think this might be helpful for some of you guys, especially if, in addition to career changing, you want to make some different life changes just in general. Now, remote work is more accepted, so that's opening up opportunities in hard to recruit areas. It's true pretty much in any field when you start a new field that, moving might be a possibility. It can certainly help you break in, pay your dues, everything like that. However, you don't necessarily need to move to Oklahoma anymore to find that first job. Remote work, and I've noticed that with some of my students who are in more competitive places like Seattle, San Francisco, New York City, they're actually working and networking with recruiters in Florida, Alabama, Utah, and are able to get into remote work. So there's a lot more out there if you open up your mind and go beyond the Silicon Valley bubble. There's a lot more out there. And in fact, once you start actually networking and trying to job seek in places that aren't like the stereotypical tech hubs, you're going to find that there's going to be definitely a friendlier, or at least just a neutral attitude when it comes to age. Now, the last thing, this is super important. Portfolio is still king. There is no way to get around this. Tech is in many ways a meritocracy. If your portfolio looks good, that can be the thing that can get you an interview. So that is always going to be the thing that you will need to fine tune and practice. And with CareerFoundry, our curriculum is really focused on creating a good portfolio. So let's see. It looks like Jerry is 78. Wow. Okay. So I think Jerry, I think you take the cake for just the age right now. So kudos. Sweet. Happy to have you here. So now that I've kind of gone in about the job market and everything, tell me what class, or at least CareerFoundry class or career interests that you guys have. So is anybody interested in UX design or web development or data analysis? UI, drop it in the comments so I can see what everybody's interested in. That'll be interesting. Jerry, you're great. Okay, I'm loving your guys' chats in the comments. You guys are having a good time. It looks like we got a lot of UX design, UI design. Okay, we got a data analysis. Sweet. Awesome. Okay, cool. Great. I just see that I think our youngest attendant and our oldest attendant are just having a good time with each other. That's great. Awesome. Thanks so much for letting me know what you guys are interested in. And yes, Nathan, UX UI, it is very unpopular. So unpopular that a lot of people study it with us. But yeah, so if you guys are interested in UX UI, CareerFoundry is definitely the place for you, in addition to all of our other courses. So thank you guys for sharing. Now, you guys have told me about your future career goals. Let's look at your past for a little bit. So how do you create a skill inventory? So you might not be able to do this right now, but if you have some ideas, jot them down. Because when you're doing a skill inventory, you want to make a list of your technical skills, so any software coding languages, any past industries, even like things like client or demographics. I had a alumni who came back to try to get a work with us to hire a new student. They'd gone off and they were working as a product manager, and they thought of us when they needed a junior teammate. And the startup focused actually on geriatric care and technology for the geriatric community. And their specification, what they wanted was somebody who understood that demographic. They actually asked us if we had any former CNAs, because they were really focused on that particular user base. I've seen students who have, maybe that they worked with children, or maybe they worked with the African American community, or like whatever. They have an insight into a user base that is important for a startup. So put that information down. Other things could be hobbies, side hustles, volunteer work, other career interests, your soft skills. Look for patterns and brainstorm what kind of industry and role that you would fit. Because the tech industry, yes, is kind of its own thing, but tech has become, so ubiquitous that non-tech companies have tech teams. They're putting microchips in Nike shoes. They have UX designers at universities for their student success teams. Like, it's really hard to find any industry where there isn't a technical component. We've even had students who have gone on to work in agribusiness, so helping farmers improve their yields. So literally, if you can think of an industry, there is probably some sort of tech adjacent role that you can become involved with. So that's why this skills inventory is so important, because a lot of job seekers, older or not, have self-limiting beliefs or understandings of the industry. They imagine, that they have to code in a beanbag chair or something at some groovy startup where there's no desks, or something. No, there's a lot of different industries. I mean, I'm in Tucson, and a lot of our students end up working in the mining industry, or with defense contractors, or in healthcare, in industries that people don't think to add technology to. So when you're doing this, and keep in mind, you will be able to reach out and get a copy of this webinar. You can also screen cap this page, but I really encourage all of you guys to do this. It's something where if you haven't done it before, it can be very illuminating. Don't censor yourself. Just put all your skill sets. You have no idea which one might be helpful, So put all that stuff down on the page and see what patterns that you get. So once you've done something like that, you can assess your seniority level. Now, some of you guys have written that you have done graphic design. If you have done graphic design, honestly, this is going to be more upskilling than a true career change. You'll be able to, depending on your skill level, actually kind of like bypass the junior phase, unless you feel like you really need it. Some of you guys are coming from completely different industries and might have different levels of familiarity with these tools. So you're going to want to, I think, after you're done with your skills assessment, test drive a career path using one of CareerFoundry's free email courses. I think we have one for each of our programs. Check that out. See if, for those of you guys who are graphic designers, there might be some stuff that's very familiar. If you aren't as aware of the chosen field that you want to get into, you might have more that you want to work on, but it's a good way to understand where you are now. Another thing that I would suggest you guys do is seek out advice from a mentor in your desired field of study. In fact, I'm going to tell you guys, your secret sauce is going to be networking. It's one of the best ways that you can get your foot in the door. It's one of the best investments you can make in your career in general. It's just getting to know more people. So reach out. Go on LinkedIn, find a local designer or developer in your area, ask them for advice. And this is something where you can actually, if you're worried about maybe being older and you want to get some advice from somebody younger, like literally you can start your message and be like, hey, I'm worried about career changing into tech as an older person. I'd love to chat with you and get your thoughts. I have noticed that a lot of people in tech are super sweet, especially in the UX design field. They are just kittens, so don't be afraid to reach out. No one's going to bite you. And then the last point is Actively work on projects to monitor your skill progress. As you're going through the course, you'll get an idea of your skill level, but don't be afraid to stretch your skills, do something extracurricular, show your mentor progress in different areas. That's going to give you a far better understanding of your seniority level. Um, so that's a little bit on seniority level. And keep in mind, guys, you can drop your questions in the chat. We'll move them to the QA, and I'll get to them in just a bit. So let's check out my next point, which is standing out on the job hunt. Now, this is something where I feel like for you guys who are more experienced job hunters, this will be both refresher, but also maybe something that might be intimidating, because some of what I'm going to talk about has to do a lot with social media. But let's roll into it. So, how do you stand out on the job market? One, you need to activate your network. I've been kind of belaboring that point throughout this webinar, and that is because people power is legitimate. It's one of those things where that know, like, and trust factor of, being able to have someone vouch for you, for your resume to like not just be another piece of paper on the HR person's desk. That is powerful. People find jobs through other people. I'm willing to bet that a lot of you guys have actually gotten work through friends or neighbors or colleagues. So when you decide to do this career change, it's a good time to, maybe when you're doing your skills inventory, to make a list of people that you know who might be in tech or adjacent to tech. And honestly, it doesn't matter if they're younger. Go out and chat with them, like get on out there. Another thing is where if you are like, oh man, I don't know anybody in tech. The thing is that there's meetups, professional associations, and alumni networks that make it easy to make these connections. There are, and I've noticed with most cities, there is some startup community, a tech community. There's chapters for different creative groups. You can find so many new people, and honestly, that's going to make your career change more fun. The more people you know, the more people that you're able to talk about this new passion of yours, the more you're going to feel it, the more this dream's going to be real to you, and the more fun and enjoyable it's going to be. So make sure that you activate that network. If you get into CareerFoundry, we will, as career specialists and, just as a whole crew, we're going to connect you to mentors and tutors and stuff like that. But I really think that, and this has been proven, at least in my experience working with students, that activating your network and starting early is one of the best things that you can do. Another thing that you can do when it comes to standing out is social media. But I'm going to tell you, focus. You don't need to be everywhere, to be honest. You want to think about the places that are really going to, give you some actual benefits, directly. Yes, there are some people who are Facebook mavens or they're big on Instagram or something, but in my opinion, you really, especially if you want to avoid as much social media as possible, you want to be on LinkedIn and you want to be on platforms specific to your discipline. So if you're a UX or UI designer, you're going to be on Behance. If you are in data analysis or you're a web developer, you're going to be on GitHub. So those are going to be the platforms that, honestly, if you optimize and you use the right keywords, you put your portfolio links, can actually be a good source of organic traffic. And like I said, you don't have to be everywhere. Play to your strengths. If you're somebody who doesn't really do the social thing, then do more networking online. Just make sure that your LinkedIn is an inviting place for recruiters. Because face-to-face is still effective, I think it's pretty much the most effective. So you don't need to be everywhere at once. You want to be strategic. Think about your career goals, have a good portfolio, and make sure that you are still having a good time with it. Isn't that why, we want to break into a new career path so we can get a little bit more satisfaction in our working life? So if you guys, like I said, have any questions, drop them on in and I'll try to answer them. Keep in mind that everybody's situation is unique and different. So you never know what might shake out, but I swear to you, if you do networking, you harness social media, and more importantly, you get strategic with your job hunt, um, it can be helpful. Now, the thing is everything that you try has an element of success or failure. I know people who don't get anything off LinkedIn, but someone finds them on Behance. I also know people who don't get anything from social media, but they reach out, and they, find that they had an old college connection who started working at a tech company. Some people will just have that random luck where they just send an application through a job board and stuff happens. What we do at CareerFoundry in our career services is teach you as many techniques and also give you the advice on what you need to do to implement them. And one of the things that we're really big on is being strategic on how you job hunt and choose the employers that you actually want to work with. So we teach our students how to use Glassdoor, LinkedIn, PayScale to do our research. We show our students how to check out and kind of decide if this company is going to reflect your values and your interests, and if it's going to be good for your career. And we also encourage students to do to shadow professionals, conduct informational interviews, to research different jobs and company culture. The second module of the job prep course is all about your strategy and understanding what you want so you can succeed and get it. And I swear to you guys, ageism does not really matter when you are looking for quality companies who don't care about that. And that's what we try to drive our students towards, companies where they will, they'll feel good about working there. And now, of course, portfolio building. I forget who put it into the chat room, but portfolios are key. If you end up assigned to me as a career specialist, I'm going to make you start early. I'm going to have you strive for 3 to 4 top-notch projects in your portfolio. And there's plenty of free sites that you can use, like GitHub, Medium, or Notion to host your first version of your portfolio. And we're going to give you advice on how, if you do have some paid options that you want to use. So there's going to be a bunch of help when it comes to this portfolio, because we want you to create projects that will appeal to the employers that you want. You'll notice after you finish your technical course and you get into the job prep course, it's going to be very sequential, where we're going to build on that first ideation period where you decide what you want to do and your goals, and then we're going to add more and more strategy to it. In addition to thinking about how you present the branding on your resume, your portfolio. So we're going to really think about what you need in your portfolio to succeed, not what's going to be like, oh, okay, everybody has this. No, we're going to try to focus on what you need. And of course, we're going to encourage you to ask for feedback from mentors and peers. You're going to get a mentor and a tutor with the course, but the more feedback, the better. When it comes to your portfolio. And the cool thing is that your portfolio is an evolving thing. You're going to polish it as you approve, so it doesn't need to be perfect in the first day. You're going to grow it. And we're going to give you enough information on how to improve it. So when recruiters evaluate your portfolio, it's going to be easy for them to decide to interview you. And of course, when it comes to portfolio building, you want to save time so you can orient your skills practice towards project producing activities. And we can give you guys a lot of advice on that. Now, I know that I went through a ton of topics. Career change can be complicated. There's a lot of variables. Everybody has sort of their own personalized needs. We can't get to them in one webinar, and I know that each one of my slides in this presentation could have been the subject of a webinar. And in fact, you're going to be able to find a lot of Career Foundry's other webinars as well at careerfoundry.com, so check that out. But in the meantime, how about we get some questions? Because I know that this chat has been hopping. Oh my goodness, I haven't been able to keep up. It just keeps moving too fast for me. I think I saw some fun jokes and everything, but my goodness. Yakub, were you able to keep up?
It was quite difficult, but we have a nice selection here. And if you're watching on LinkedIn, because we're also broadcasting this to our LinkedIn page, please post them on LinkedIn, and I'll be looking at one of my free screens to get to them.
Wow, you have three. I feel like just having one, I'm a slacker.
It's a Star Trek setup here. Yeah, so let's start with the question from Prima. How should the CV resume be structured for career changers? What sections are most important?
Yeah, for sure. So for a career changer, it can depend on the type of job you want, but I always like seeing a sort of like a career summary at the top, one or two sentences that literally just tells a recruiter what to think about you. If you have an unconventional or maybe a not so linear career history, having just something at the top to explain it can be so helpful. And then you can have lists of skills, and then sometimes I have education or experience. It depends on the type of jobs you want. But the thing at the top, career summary.
Great. Then you spoke about networking quite a bit. What if I have no network in tech? How can I find networks online?
Yeah, good question. Now, I understand this. I came from a small town where, like, people didn't really even have computers. So I understand what you're going with. But the thing is, when you are in a course or you start networking, going to webinars like this, or you start connecting with the community online, that's where you can find folks. So you can, if you decide to go with Career Foundry, the school can be a good place to find a network. Also, I want to say that you might have been one of the students who wanted to do UX design. In that case, you can go to meetup.org, just type in UX for meetup groups in your local area and show up. People are really nice. So don't worry, they won't chase you away.
Great. I really encourage you to share your LinkedIns in the chat and connect with other attendees. That's how it starts. Are there any specific UX associations or conferences you would recommend joining, attending?
Yeah, so I think that the UXPA is really good. That has chapters in a number of different locations, but I would also encourage you guys not to isolate yourself to only your discipline. If you are a developer, it's great to network with designers because you guys might be on similar teams, but you're never in competition. You know, if you are somebody who is in your local area, you're going out to startup events, you can network with founders and you can actually promote yourself. So don't be afraid to go outside the box. It can be really beneficial to go places where they need designers. So that's a suggestion there.
Great. And there are quite a few questions about the future of work and the future of remote work. So with some tech companies announcing that they will no longer require employees to come into the office, and others saying that they will require employees to be on site eventually. What are you seeing as the future norm for remote work for UX, UI designers? But I would expand it to data analysts and web developers and the whole tech sector.
Yeah, okay, let's start with the people that's going to be the hardest to force back to the office, developers. I have not met a single developer, even the most extroverted, who is like, yippity skippity, back to the office, and they are digging in their heels. So for you guys who are developers, you guys might not go back to the office. For those of you guys who are UX designers, I've seen some people go back to office and they're happy with it because they get to collaborate and stuff like that. But more and more companies, like, keep in mind, remote work used to be weird. I remember applying for CareerFoundry, and I had a big section on how I had a home office and I knew how to work online, and that was a big deal. I knew how to use Zoom. Everyone knows how to use Zoom. My grandpa knows how to use Zoom. So the thing is that this is going to be a coming change. And so if you are like a developer, or you're going to be in a role where you're not going to be doing as much collaboration, there's going to be there's a bigger chance that you're not going to go in the office. If you're a UX designer, there is that possibility because it's so collaborative, that field. However, plenty of companies were remote before it was cool. So you can actually pick and choose which companies are remote if you want. So hopefully that helps. It's becoming less and less of a factor every day.
It seems that we have quite a few graphic designers here in the room. And there's another question from Prima. If I'm a graphic designer, should I have a portfolio that mixes my UX UI projects with my graphic design projects, or have a discipline-specific portfolio?
You can have both. The thing is that you want to structure your portfolio so these projects are clearly separated. So have a page that says UX, have a page that has graphic design, just so people who want to evaluate specific skills can easily do so.
Great. And in terms of salary expectations, I know it's likely we have to accept a more junior salary rate at first in order to change careers, but how much experience would we have to gain before we can command the same as our peers who started before us in the industry?
It's portfolio based. The thing is that if you have a good portfolio and you can make a good argument for yourself, then you can, I mean, it also depends on your area, how much salary negotiations is common. But if you have a good portfolio, if you have maybe an insight, so let's say you have a good portfolio and you have a background in, let's say, construction, and you're applying for a company that just does design for construction firms or something like that, you can use your previous experience and your great portfolio as a selling point in the negotiation, and almost be like, hey, who else are you going to find that's going to have this intersection of skills? So at least in the US, you can kind of advocate and try to get as much as you want. So that's going to be down to you. But if your portfolio is good, that's the first step.
And I see a couple of questions, one here on LinkedIn as well. How much can adding a program language help with employment prospects? So basically, and the person asking is a UX designer. Would you say that skill is important?
The more you know, the more you earn. So the thing is that if you can be a multifaceted designer, go for it. I mean, it's not required. There's a lot of companies that want to keep those two things separate, but especially if you're going for startups, startups love having people who have extra uses. So if you can be the Swiss Army, you know, knife version of a designer, go for it.
And a really interesting question from Kate: how to address rejoining the workforce after being a stay-at-home parent?
Okay, well, this is very understandable. So this is something that you can put in a cover letter and say that you're coming back. If you have like the actual gap, you can actually say what it was on your resume, just so you get the air cleared on that. And I would also check out the different programs that they have nowadays for parents who are coming back to the workforce. There's actually a number of programs for both men and women who are returning. So that's going to be the way to acknowledge it. I like just to leave it out there. It's not weird. It's not like you were in prison. You know, might as well just say it and move on with it, and make sure that it doesn't seem like a big deal, because they will make it as big of a deal as you do.
A couple of questions about freelancing and being self-employed. that just disappeared from my screen, but I'm going to read it from here. What are the pros and cons of being self-employed?
Okay, the thing is, every con is a strength for somebody. You're going to be your marketing team. So you have to decide if you like that. You're also your own salesperson, which I'm bad at. I'm bad at being my own salesperson in my freelance career coaching. If you are self-employed, you have to deal with your own taxes. Now, I like making my own schedule. I like being my own boss in many ways, even though technically you almost would say I have many bosses with my different clients. But I like it. I enjoy having a new routine. Things change all the time. You got to decide if you like that, because some people don't like the instability. They don't like they don't like how that there's not really a routine unless they make it. There's no manager really looking over your shoulder. So it has to all come from within. And taxes suck. I don't like playing that very nerve-wracking game of math every year. But that's something that does come with the territory. I love it. I think it's great. But you have to look at your own self and decide how many hats you want to wear, and if you do need an external motivation on the job.
That's a really solid answer, I think. With skills building, is it better to focus on learning a wide variety of skills, or should I focus intensely on specialization?
Now, my feeling is that even though we're kind of getting out of this pandemic recession, that finding a specialty is good. Like, check out your local area, see if there's any patterns that you spot that people want. So maybe it's something where maybe you're in a place like Chicago and there's a lot of business to business design jobs. You could specialize in B2B, design. If you are somebody who maybe has an education background and you want to specialize in ed tech, go ahead. The thing that you want to do with whatever strategy you go towards is every skill that you learn or any course or whatever you do, have an idea on how this moves your goals along. If this is something that feels like, oh, maybe this would be good to you do or to know, but you don't have a specific plan for it, you're really probably not going to finish whatever that tutorial or whatever it is. So make sure you have a good why. Yes, you can be a generalist, but I often find that especially for newcomers, it's easy when they have a specific goal, a specific industry in mind, because then they can craft a presentation and they already know who they're talking
to. I see quite a few questions about portfolios. And the thing I'm going to say is that we actually have quite a few portfolio webinars. So please visit our events page and search for that. Sammy presented a couple of them already. So you'll find all the answers to Behance or your own website or what defines a great portfolio there. Interesting question about data analytics. I've been looking for a job posting for data analyst, and I get a bit intimidated because almost all companies require experience in data analyst, data science, even jobs posting in my industry, which is broadcast. What advice can you give?
Okay, so the thing is with years of experience or any job description is that a job description is like a Christmas list, but it's a Christmas list made through a game of telephone through different departments. So there's going to be requirements on there that are going to be less important in the end than others. So when it comes to the years of experience, what you need to think about is not so much like, oh, do I have the years? Because how do you quantify that? You could be in data analysis for 3 years and be bad at it, to be honest. Years of experience does not mean that you're better. It's kind of just an arbitrary sort of benchmark. However, what's not arbitrary is your background, is your portfolio, are your projects. So if you can go and present to a company maybe a mixed bag of experience that does relate or it is transferable, that makes up the time, and you come with a portfolio that's really good, that is going to be enough. Most of those jobs, and this is verbiage that a lot of people miss, is that they say something like 3 years or equivalent experience, 3 years doing X, Y, and Z, and it could be something like psychology, humans, blah, blah, blah. Like, you never know, like design, blah, 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 whatever the thing is. They know that not everybody, especially in tech, has the very specific thing that they're hiring for or whatever. They're looking for somebody who can be as good of a fit as possible. So the more that you put on your resume the right keywords, you use your cover letter and you address their business issues and make it and pretty much convince them, or like at least assure them that you can solve them, you know, that number requirement is not as important. You know, you want to make sure that you're bringing something to the table, but don't let that freak you out. In fact, I have this suspicion that they do that just kind of to like kind of freak out the newcomers, you know. So keep that in mind. If you have a good portfolio, people stop asking so many questions. That's what I've noticed.
And actually, one of our recent graduates got a job as a senior UX designer, purely based on her previous experience, and we will be interviewing her in September. So again, stay tuned and visit our events page a bit later to attend this event.
And Jakub, just another thing that I forgot to address. Part of why I kept talking about networking is when you're an insider for a company or you know people on the inside, all of those requirements become suggestions, you know, because you have that inside track. So the more you can network, the more people you know, the less you actually have to hop through those sort of hoops. The more you're going to get introductions, the more that you're going to access the hidden job market. So don't rely on job boards for everything. They purposely put filters to repel people, you know, or else they'd be inundated with applications. So sorry, that was just my last point on that.
Good. Maybe we have time for another question. I really love this one from Ted. Does our background still give us an edge if the experience is from nearly 20 years ago? Should I include this info on LinkedIn or CV? I feel like it calls attention to our age.
Yeah, now it's going to depend on the discipline. If it's tech and it's like an old language like COBOL or something like that, then the industry's moved on. If it's something like educating children, no, I mean, they might have TikTok, but they're not too different. So it's going to depend on the industry that you come from. If it is a tech industry, you know, that's going to be something where you might not mention it as a thing on the resume, but if it becomes relevant or something that you can share as a story, it could be something that you put in a cover letter or your introduction email or something like that. You can use it in other ways. Remember, your resume is supposed to be like a marketing document that intrigues people, like the trailer of a movie. It's not supposed to tell your full life story.
Fantastic. It's 1 hour on the dot. So thank you, Sami, and thank you everyone for attending and interacting with us in the chat, for asking all the fantastic questions. If we didn't ask you a question, please reach out to one of our career specialists and advisors. They will be happy to answer your questions. And with that, yeah, I wish you good evening, good morning, wherever you're based. Yeah, and see you next time.
Bye, guys. Have a good one.